Est-Ouest 91.7. RM1, it's 9 o'clock. The news with Aries Stewart. Good morning, Aries.
Good morning, Sophie.
The headlines.
Kishore Bigu resigns from Airport Holdings Limited over governance concerns. Salary compensation talks open amid tensions between unions and the private sector. Draft domestic abuse bill aims to strengthen protection for victims as cases continue to rise. Prime Minister announces electoral reform, including proportional representation to boost women's presence in Parliament. Diego Garcia legislative bill advances after passing the House of Lords committee stage. In world news, President Trump calls Washington shooting an act of terror as Afghan national identified as suspect. And in sports news, Liverpool suffer another heavy Champions League defeat while Arsenal extend their winning run. We start this morning with news that the director of Airport Holdings Limited, Kishore Bigu, has tendered his resignation as well as that of all the group's subsidiaries, including Mauritius Duty Free Paradise, Ground Handling Services, Mauritius Helicopter, and Rodrigues Duty Free Paradise. In a letter sent to the company secretary yesterday, he mentions disagreements regarding the appointment of an executive chairman. During the board meeting of 7 November, he had warned against the selection of a candidate who is currently involved in legal proceedings with Air Mauritius for an amount estimated at 38 million rupees. He had also requested a reduction of the proposed salary package, which he wished to revise to around 810,000 rupees per month before any contract could be signed. Kishore Bigu states that he did not receive any remuneration throughout his entire mandate, saying he worked entirely on a voluntary basis. Negotiations on the upcoming salary compensation began yesterday, where trade unions, the private sector and the Ministry of Labour met around the table. But the proposed inflation rate of 3.7% is already sparking controversy. Unions are demanding an upward revision, while the private sector is calling for caution. More on this with Maya Lachman.
Discussions during the meeting between the Ministry of Labour, the trade unions and employers' representatives regarding wage compensation focused mainly on the 3.7% inflation rate announced by Statistics Mauritius. We listened to representatives of various organizations. They shared their apprehension, difficulties they are facing, and how some companies will not be able to absorb a significant increase in salaries.
Comment certaines compagnies pas capables d'absorber une augmentation conséquente de ce salaire.
From the workers' side, the various union representatives have made a plea for an adequate compensation for the cost of living. They contested the figures of Statistics Mauritius because, according to them, prices have increased more than that.
Je viens contester les chiffres de Statistiques Mauritius parce que je viens dire que selon eux, le prix une montée plus que ce qui est dit dans Statistiques Mauritius.
This rate is being rejected by all trade union groups. Based on the State of the Economy report, unionists are calling for a revision of this figure. Regarding housing, linked to the household budget survey, it was said that on housing, electricity and gas, people spend only 4,000 rupees. But in reality, renting a small two-bedroom house with a kitchen and a bathroom is not less than 10,000 rupees. Our question is, since November 2024 till date, how much depreciation there has been. Several trade unionists have already proposed an amount that they believe better reflects the reality on the ground. Our salary has depreciated vis-à-vis the dollar and the euro. We should look at indebtedness, old age pension, which has increased from 60 to 65 years. On the side of Business Mauritius, caution prevails. Following successive wage increases, many companies say they are no longer able to absorb a substantial compensation. Certain sectors have reserves and can meet the cost, while others, their margin will decrease. Some will have a cash flow issue, and others will have to review recruitment and investment plans. several questions remain unresolved, particularly regarding government support for small and medium enterprises, as well as whether the compensation will apply only to employees earning up to 50,000 rupees. Further meetings are scheduled and the deliberations will be endorsed by Cabinet before the final announcement.
And moving to Parliament, the domestic abuse bill currently being drafted aims to strengthen the protection of victims of domestic violence and address gaps in the current law. The situation remains worrying. In 2024, 5,758 cases were reported to Statistics Mauritius, 86.6% of whom were women, and 646 women suffered sexual violence compared with 47 men. For the first half of 2025, 3,768 new cases were reported, including 3,200 involving women. According to the Minister of Gender Equality and Family Welfare, these acts of violence stem from dysfunctional parenting models, traumatic experiences, and the pressures of an increasingly complex and digitalized society. The government says it is determined to act. The domestic abuse bill will thus strengthen the existing legal framework and provide more effective protection for victims, reflecting the state's commitment to combating gender-based violence and building a safer and more equal society. The government will be moving forward with an electoral reform that will include a dose of proportional representation to ensure better female representation in the National Assembly. These were the words of the Prime Minister at the official launch of the 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence. While visiting an exhibition at the Sir Harilal Vaji Hall in Port Louis, Dr. Navin Ramgoolam said that violence against women remains a reality. A responsible government, he said, must intervene to reverse this trend. We take a listen to an extract from the Prime Minister speaking to the press.
Children must be taught their rights and responsibilities and how to protect themselves and denounce those who attempt violence, any kind of violence on them or on their parents. The Deputy Prime Minister and myself, we are going to bring forward this electoral reform that we are committed to bring. Because with electoral reform, with a dose of PR, we should be able to address this problem of representations of women in Parliament.
And moving on to other news, the Diego Garcia military base and British Indian Ocean Territory Bill has passed the committee stage without amendments in the House of Lords. The committee completed its detailed examination of the bill and decided to forward it to the next stage of the British parliamentary legislative process. The committee stage took place over 2 days, 18 and 25 November. We listen to more details with Maya Lachman.
My Lords, the bill has been reported without amendment.
After more than 7 hours of debate, the bill concerning the Diego Garcia military base and the British Indian Ocean Territory passed the committee stage to the report stage without amendments. The report stage means that the committee has approved the bill in its current form and will now be examined by the full House of Lords for further debate and a possible vote.
The Trust Fund is an essential part of the treaty. It is essentially the only part of the treaty that is positive for the community.
At this stage, any MP or any member of the House may propose new amendments that were not discussed during the committee stage, debate amendments that were accepted or rejected by the committee, and revisit parts of the bill that have raised technical, political or constitutional concerns.
Mauritius, as the sovereign state and as specifically referenced under Annex 2 of the treaty, has jurisdiction over irregular migration to the Chagos archipelago, including Diego Garcia.
This is the last opportunity to propose and vote on changes before the third reading. The report stage generally begins 14 days after the end of the committee stage and may extend over several days. In contrast to the committee, where the scrutiny is very detailed, debates in the full chamber are generally more on the broader issues raised by the bill. Once this stage is completed, the bill proceeds to the third reading and receives royal assent. The purpose of this bill is to incorporate into UK law certain provisions of treaty signed in May 2025 between the United Kingdom and Mauritius, a treaty that concerns the status and future of the Chagos archipelago, including the Diego Garcia military base.
And you're listening to RM1. It's 10 past 9. We move to international news. President Donald Trump said Wednesday that an Afghan man who fled the Taliban was the suspect in the shooting of 2 National Guard soldiers near the White House, calling it an act of terror. The incident, which left 2 Guard members critically wounded, was an act of evil, an act of hatred, and an act of terror, Trump said. It was a crime against our entire nation. He confirmed that the man taken into custody after the daytime shooting 2 blocks from the White House was a foreigner who entered the country from Afghanistan. And finally in sports, Liverpool continue to plummet. Heavily beaten in the league, the Reds collapsed once again at Anfield against PSV Eindhoven, losing 4-1 in the Champions League. Liverpool thus remain 13th in the Champions League standings in full crisis mode. Arsenal, meanwhile, made a strong statement with a 3-1 win against Bayern Munich. Arsenal thus remain leaders of this phase with 5 wins in 5 matches. That's all from me this morning. Thanks so much for listening. Stay tuned now to the Intermeet playlist until 10 a.m.